So as I took that first script fill into that first month, I should say, did feel a little bit funny. All of my, it was almost as if my super information highway had come to a complete halt. In some ways, I was relieved. And I remember that previous to that I had actually kind of had a discussion with my subconscious, if you will, about how I was going to go on a vacation away from it for a while and actually try to assimilate into a normal culture through medication. And, the response that I received was that not to, and that, they're to reconsider because of all the potential issues that could arise, plus the separation from something so precious as me and part of me. So I was, pretty understanding to that, but at the same time, I also needed to escape from what was me and what I viewed as being broken because of the feedback I was receiving. So I went and began taking the medication, also because I was angry about how being me would get me into a lot of trouble. A pro of this is it helped clear up a lot of my thoughts and see things for what was really going on. As being on the spectrum, sometimes we don't see things or choose to ignore things or don't perceive things in the way that they really are, or second guess ourselves. So often judgment isn't always the best, and throughout life we tend to collect people who are more damaging than others, and we also tend to sometimes get employed with jobs that I believe may not be of the best environment, but based primarily upon having to or an expectation of having to be something that you're not, more money or a more prestigious position. So anyway, I cut a few of these people out of my life, and some of them I had known for many years, almost a lifetime. But I would rather be lonely and unemployed rather than forced to be unethical or unmoral, or have my weaknesses used as pivots from individuals' mind games, or to be the friend who is there at the back burner moments, or the friend who is expected to be a host for parasitical and leeching needs, or a friend who just doesn't really exist. So, like I said, the Adderall helped me see clearly when people were using and twisting my words, or using my shortcomings, if you will, to their advantage and to take control of situations. And I started seeing that more. And I actually also began to properly, determine my emotions and reactions towards things that were happening at the moment, rather than breaking down later because I am overwhelmed with a series of experiences or events that I hadn't been able to completely individualize as the day progressed. So that was a really interesting experience. However, being that Adderall is an amphetamine, unfortunately, sometimes, at times that would, I guess even, I was going to say angry, but most of everything that I experienced was actually angry and sad, and it was quite stronger and more extreme than what I had previously displayed. It was rather intense. So, I also noticed, and something I could tell you is when you do start to cut people out of your life who are damaging, they do not like that very much, and it seems a good metaphor for it is that serpents do bite faster and harder as they die. But after about a month or two of being on the medication, I began withdrawing from life, and I was no longer completing projects or even beginning to follow through with craft projects, to say that I had purchased many supplies for, but it just didn't sit down to even begin. I showed no interest in anything. I didn't care about anything. I cared only about how many things were wrong with the world, and how mean and unjust things were. And yet I couldn't even get out of my bed or my room And it didn't initially begin as depression, but eventually, as I was losing myself, it kind of turned into a depression or a wallowing-like state. And I focused, as I said, on injustifications and bullshit, and it just kind of became a symbiotic kind of reaction within myself. And to make it worse, I didn't have my guides to affirm things that I knew, or it's very hard to explain, but those on the spectrum, again, or those with heightened sensitivities will probably understand what I'm speaking of. I was definitely lost like a captain without a compass, but there were more side effects. So when I started out on the prescription, I weighed 130 pounds, and I was just under 5'4". And I told the prescribing psychiatrist about my already small appetite and size, and also about my sleep and fatigue and insomnia issues. I was concerned about whether the drug would suppress my appetite or keep me awake, and she said no, it was a child's dose, prescribed me at 5 milligrams 2 times a day, once in the morning and once at lunchtime, and that I should eat before I take it, which would, probably be no problem, except that I tend to not eat until later in the day. It takes longer for me to wake up, and if I try to eat early in the morning, I do end up not feeling quite well. So it's something I've never done, and I can't force myself to eat, and I don't enjoy being uncomfortable, to say the least. And so on April 30th was when I was prescribed. So by August 8th, I was down to 109 pounds, and what I'm reaching for and have is a pair of my old shorts versus a pair of pants that were given to me. I'm sorry, I have these backwards. But to give you an idea, these shorts are size 8, and the pants here are a size 0. These are American sizes. I understand that in Europe the sizes differ, but we're looking at about a 2 or 3 inch difference just in the folded waist. I went down to 26 inches, and I also was lucky to get a 3 hours of uninterrupted sleep nightly, and at least twice a week I wasn't going to bed at all. I was just staying up all night and taking my dose in the morning, and then repeating the cycle. And I was tired, I was sickly, I was thin, and I could see the veins and the ligaments in my bodies. I found bumps in my body, and this even added more so into my concern and my image, like how I felt about myself. And at some points I even was questioning whether I was dying or sicker than it had appeared. And some people would, when I asked her, when I mentioned somewhere midpoint to the prescriber about me looking or being too thin, she asked me what was wrong with that, and my response was, compared to who? Are we talking about Twiggy or Kate Moss here? Have you looked at me? I wasn't eating much at all, and at some point on nighttime, dyskinesia or some sort of like firing limb syndrome, it wasn't even restless leg syndrome, began to kick in. And at this point, like right as I would relax, all this random firing of my muscles and arms, and even my back would spasm, and I would involuntarily curl up into a fetal position. And it was a terrible experience. Even vocal tics and rumbles and gurgles would release from my throat. Other things that occurred were nausea and dizziness, hot flashes, and eventually over time my thigh muscles, particularly the right one, really began to develop hard spots of pain. I know I already have some underlying muscle tension, but I believe that the amphetamines caused a tension to squeeze, or caused me to tense up more. And again, further reading shows obviously this is the case. Again, an amphetamine, and it was causing so much discomfort that I couldn't even walk at times. And again, like I said, I had some potential underlying and some way sciatica, but I could tell the tension because there are times where my jaw would also clench, or my fists would clench, and I would feel very intense. I called my medical doctor, and she advised me to stop taking the medication, and I did for a few weeks, and I ate, and I got some sleep. I began to forget after 2 weeks about how I had felt previous. I even began to feel almost like a shadowed or very small reconnection with myself, and even my relationship with my significant other improved. He and I are both on the same wavelength, and when I was placed on medication, it was kind of like taking the blue pill or something and leaving into an entirely different matrix. So it changes the person, and so this is an experience not just for the person on medication, but also for the person with or close to that person, a parent, a loved one, a guardian. It left him more with a new, artificial, fed up, neurotypical, I suppose, or non-neurodivergent, with no patience and no understanding of the disorder whatsoever. And I started not understanding who he was, and thinking I couldn't deal with that kind of person and behavior, and it was a complete misunderstanding and a very confusing time for both. So, as I said, all taken in fact, I quit and I stopped and things got better. And then a couple of weeks back, I started taking it again to see if it might correlate with the pains and all the side effects that I was experiencing with. And yes, indeed, it seemed to start up again. My thigh muscles began to hurt. I began to get more agitated. I was losing sleep, and my weight began to decline again. And I started doing more and more research on Adderall, going to different drug and pharmaceutical websites, and as well as medical health sites. I like to do a lot of research, and I encourage other people to do so. It's good to see what other people are experiencing on forums, but again, those are personal and individual stories, so to get a good answer and real statistics, you really need to dig, but I encourage people to do so, not to be afraid to take a little extra time to see what they're getting into. And I found that many of what I was experiencing was side effects from Adderall, including that it is a vein constrictor, and perhaps in some ways the reason I could see my veins rising and having pains and bruising had to do, again, with this little blue pill. So I really, again, I did take myself off, or I should say my doctor, again, and everybody has now agreed to remove me from the medication. I have been doing much better. I feel more confident in myself, and I realize what I have gone through and what I was doing it for. From my experience, it was for everybody else and less for me. And I'm trying to bring myself back, as well as to encourage people to not lose themselves based on other people's expectations. It is quite dangerous. And so another thing, just to tell you, it is very tempting, and it's nice to have a vacation from everything, and to be able to walk a little bit on this planet without being different, to have less social blunders, and to have your thoughts and words more carefully chosen. There is also the ability to focus on when and when not to interrupt, and a new focus on nonverbal signals. But with all that said, remember, it's a very lonely planet for me, because I didn't fit between either. I didn't belong to either group. I didn't belong to the neurotypicals, and I didn't belong to the neurodivergent. I can never be a convincing counterfeit. I can never assimilate into a neurotypical universe, and at least not for long term. There's no, there's pill that they gave me is for ADHD. It's not for Aspergers, and it's not, you know, for it's how can I say it? When on the pills, it's like I'm no longer an Aspie. I did not feel gifted in any way, and I became very ordinary, and it really sucked. It took away all of the excitement of the gifts that I had. And, you know, before I even took the pill, I had begun to learn ways that I could align and balance myself, and to trust my instincts, and to have better judgment, and to not allow other people's opinions to affect me. But it was in the middle of that I did decide to take the plunge. But to let you know, I don't feel the way I was before. I'm not depressed. I feel more whole. And again, the most important thing I think I can bring to you is to listen to yourself, read. It is okay to question people. I was told many times that the dosage I was receiving was appropriate, and that I shouldn't be experiencing as many side effects as I was. And it was also mentioned and suggested that if they weren't working as well anymore, or perhaps working like this, that it was time to up the dosage. I did not agree with that. It had been suggested that they, to balance out the aggression, which may have been a underlying subsurface condition, to give me another psychotropic mood balancing drug. And I did not want to be that guinea pig. It was just too much, and for what I don't know. But it's not worth losing me or being unhappy doing so. And so that, again, is really all I have to share at this time in regards to it. There are some people, I believe, that strongly do require medication, and I do support that, but if you're not one that it works for, then I strongly suggest trying to find other ways to adapt and to cope with things that you feel might be interfering in your life, and also to not try to change things based on other people's opinions of you. So that is it. I apologize for any type of disjointedness, and I bid you all good night.